And good morning, everybody. It is Wonderful Wednesday with Adam Cox, another Brit who I had to meet in America at Hypnothoughts Live, the conference there in Las Vegas. Now, Adam, you are very well known. You are well known for your podcast, and I'm so lucky because I've been on it. However, Adam, what led you to doing podcasts? What made you go into that area?
I think what it was is COVID in a weird way kind of forced my hand, because up until that point, I'd been a hypnotherapist for about 5 years, and I was working from Harley Street. So other Brits will know Harley Street as being quite a prestigious address in London, and that enabled me to get quite a high caliber of client. But it was also good for me to build a lot of credibility, and I would invite members of the media to kind of do sessions, and celebrities and those kind of things to come in and do hypnosis for me. But I feel like I'm pretty good at reading what situations are happening and then adapting. So when COVID came along, I had this sense that it would be very difficult to see clients face to face. So I was luckily not on a permanent contract in Harley Street, so I just gave the notice. I ended that, and I'm an audio geek, so I thought, okay, I'm going to see less clients face to face, but I don't want to, let's say, get rusty with my hypnosis skills. I wanted an outlet for that. And because I'm an audio geek, I had recordings of all of my previous hypnosis sessions, but recorded my voice, so it protected the confidentiality of the clients. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I could create a hypnosis podcast and repurpose the audio that I've already recorded. And that's what I did. And I created this podcast called The Hypnotist. And I was inspired by transcripts of real hypnosis sessions. So some of my early influences were some of the transcripts from Milton Erickson, where you would actually get to know the issue of the client, and then actually what he did and said in the session to help that particular client. A book that had another big impact on me was Magic in Action, which was one of the early books about Richard Bandler doing interventions with people. So it was the actual use of NLP techniques in a real term. And I felt like that was so much more useful than just reading about techniques and procedures, is actually what was said, what was the interaction. So the concept of the Hypnotist podcast was to have a real hypnosis session based on a real client facing real issues, protecting the confidentiality of that client, but effectively it became real. And that was to begin with, using repurposed audio. But most of my audio at that point was weight loss, and I felt like I needed new stuff. So that's when it really changed, and I started taking inspiration from movies and books, even poetry, to come up with some real innovative concepts. And then suddenly the audience started growing. And that was, we're at the 5th anniversary of COVID. So it was about 5 years ago that podcast was launched. I think I'm about 2,000 episodes in now. So it's I think coming up to 11 million downloads. So it's gone way bigger than I ever expected, but it came from COVID that kind of forced my hand to do something different.
Yeah, I love it. And it's your voice, though. It is, it's very hypnotic. And you're right, Harley Street. So are you back at Harley Street now?
No, it was a funny thing, because I intended to be back in Harley Street as soon as lockdown, was kind of lifted. But at that point, my belief system is that if you're seeing clients face to face, you need a therapy room. If you're seeing clients remotely, you need a recording studio. So I'd built a recording studio at that point, and therefore I'd gone from only working with clients within about a 50-mile radius of London to working with clients all over the world. So at the point where you've then got an international client base, to then go back to a very expensive clinic. It was prestigious, but it wasn't particularly good, because you would have, the busy streets of London outside the window. Even though it was on the top floor, you'd have that kind of noise. Sometimes you would have neighboring practitioners, people in the waiting room. So it actually was a blessing for me that actually when I'd experienced working with clients remotely in a kind of recording studio, why then go back to an inferior way of doing things? So it was great for the first 5 years, but since then, I think I much prefer doing it in this kind of way of kind of working with clients wherever they might be in the world.
Yeah. And I know Harley Street well. I used to eat my lunch there as a student. I used to go to the London College of Fashion.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, just around the corner.
I know, just around the corner. So I know it because when I was in London, because I'm from Yorkshire, I was always looking for green space. It was like, where can I find nature? And it was, so there's that little park, isn't there, at the back?
Grosvenor Square, yeah. And I remember having a client that was terrified of birds, and I love testing stuff. So after the session, we went down, we took her to Grosvenor Square, where it's filled with pigeons. And for the first time ever, she was able to actually get close to pigeons and see them and not freak out. And I think that was quite a handy thing when I was, very close to Grosvenor Square, just to test stuff, things like that.
I know, I love it. And you're right, it's so important to test the work. I do that test, it's like, but when we see somebody for a fear, it's like sometimes you have to backtrack. Well, when are you flying? Okay, so let's it's like, do it. Your last session is going to be just before then. And then, you sort of have to backtrack the sessions. And same with anything else that they might have a fear of, or they then have to book something or whatever it is. But yeah, absolutely. And yes, there's a lot of pigeons in London.
A lot, yeah.
There's a lot. So I am going to be seeing you at the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference next, which is the 5th and 6th of April in Dublin. Have you been before?
I have. I was there last year. I did a talk about nested loops, which is one of my favorite, kind of ways of utilizing kind of creativity in hypnosis. This year, I'm going to be talking about hypnosis in the 4th dimension, which feels to a lot of people, I think, a little bit kind of woo-woo and a bit esoteric, but I think it's just a very powerful metaphor for hypnosis.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And okay. Well, I look forward to that then, because it's like you say, we don't want to say too much, because otherwise, if you say what you're going to talk about, then people are like, oh, I don't need to see that one then. And so what's next for you, Adam? What's next? What's coming up for you after the hypnotherapy conference? What I mean, is it more podcasting? Is it more getting into a niche? What do you want to do?
So one of the things that has been growing, I think most people know me from my podcast, but my YouTube channel is kind of growing steadily. And I repurposed the audio from the podcast for video. But what I've started to do is actually take my hypnosis kind of out to the kind of places that sometimes feature in my hypnosis sessions. So like beaches and mountains and lakes and rivers and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm actually got a couple of trips planned this year just to record hypnosis out in nature. So I'm going to Brazil in April, and a few other places that are kind of in the diary to record and capture some new stuff. I'm going to be at Hypnothoughts Live in Vegas in July, and I'm going to be talking there again about nested loops, but also how podcasting can help therapists to establish their credibility and build a client base as well. And recently I've applied for a TED Talk.
You've got a workshop there, haven't you?
Yeah, that workshop. So effectively in one day, we're going to be showing, I think for me, I procrastinated maybe for about 2 or 3 years before I had the idea of a podcast and then actually did the podcast. And it was because it felt daunting and there was things that just felt like I didn't understand. So in just a single day, we're going to guide people that have considered a podcast so they know what it's going to be called, what the format is, what the concept is, how to build an audience, how then to engage with that audience to monetize it. So everything they would need to know to actually launch a successful podcast. Because unfortunately, there's podcasts almost like a graveyard of people attempting things, and then they kind of forget about them because it's quite tricky to find a podcast that actually kind of connects with people. But that's mainly because people are kind of launching a podcast through trial and error rather than actually, some kind of systematic way that works. So yeah, we're going to do a.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you're giving people a framework that they can work from, and they have to get that right before they can move on to that bit, and really don't, I must admit, I just do things sometimes. I just did this without really understand. I still don't know how this works. some of
I
it.
think that's good as well. I think it's doing stuff it gives you an exponential upside, because my philosophy is you either win or you learn. So if you try stuff, sometimes it just works out. But the way I look at it is, I've fallen down the pitfalls of podcasting, and I know where it goes wrong. And if you think about the essence of NLP, which is modeling excellence, it's this idea of, well, you don't have to learn a strategy from scratch. You can just figure out someone's pre-existing strategy, utilize that, and then you get to learn from other people's experience. So why not apply the same thinking to, if you're going to launch a podcast, maybe find someone that's already got a successful podcast, and then they're going to help you save the time and the emotions of making mistakes that can, damage your confidence or your enthusiasm and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And that, funnily enough, you just saying that, that's the bunny talk process is literally modeled on a lot of other people's things. I mean, that I created, but I didn't, because that's an anchor. So it's a lot of NLP here. So, which is absolutely wonderful. Oh, and actually Bandler, he's going to be the keynote speaker at the Hypnotherapy Conference in Chicago, the Mid-America Conference.
Oh, really? Because he rarely does the hypnosis conferences, which is a shame, because he's a very good hypnotist.
I know. And he's the keynote speaker there at Mid-America, and Chase Hughes as well. And on the Monday, Bandler's doing a workshop.
Amazing.
I know.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of Bandler workshops. I think he's great. He's such a maverick, and a kind of, you get quite often these kind of eccentrics in this world of hypnosis, and he's definitely one of them. But yeah, just a force of nature, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it'll be. I mean, it's good because it'll elevate the whole, if you like, the whole feeling of having somebody like that there, because there's so much of the hypnotists that I know. They're all NLP practitioners as well. In fact, it was quite funny. Bob Burns, you know Bob Burns.
Yeah,
he's so funny. He said, during life, you're either going to, at some point, you're born, and you're going to die, and somewhere in the middle, you become a master NLP practitioner.
That's funny.
I know, he's full of them. He really is. So, okay. So we know we've got the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference. I'm going to be seeing you there. It's my first time there. I'm looking forward to that. And so I'm actually I'm showcasing the bunny talk process, which will be good fun, because that's, as I say, for children, it's for teens, it's in the parents. They have to understand what is going on for the child. I think you have to engage the parent, because so often it's not just the child. And again, I've found that it's for inner child work as well.
That would make sense. Yeah.
And I didn't realize that until I've been showcasing it at conferences, because I've had to have somebody come up and be a guinea pig, and then they actually have regressed into their child. And I've gone, oh my gosh, we're all like this. The very first time I did that, we all just went, oh, this isn't just for children. This is inner child work. And I have actually been using it loads now with my adults when they come in for something for their, that happened when they were a child. And it's interesting. You'll go, I wish I'd had this when I was a child, because it's pretty much content free. And children don't like to say stuff, but they know they feel it. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So I know you were gracious enough to have me on your podcast, and I was able to talk about that. What do you like working with, Adam? What kind of people?
When I started, my specialism was weight loss and phobias. These days, it's become more random just because of the podcast. Because whenever I do a new, let's say, topic on a different kind of theme of hypnosis, then people that are searching for that particular condition see me and then kind of reach out. So it's gone in very random directions, like, not just anxiety, but a certain kind of, there's a condition called burning mouth syndrome, for example. I've worked with a lot of people with that, certain kind of sexual and relationship issues. I worked with a few clients that had really suffered as a result of quite a traumatic breakup. And that was, leading to a lot of clients in this area. So I'm a big believer of kind of niching and specialization, but the nature of now when I see clients, I love the randomness. I don't know if you remember the TV show The A-Team, but at the beginning of each thing there would be like some kind of random kind of like mission they have to do, and it kind of feels like that when I'm on a consultation call. Like I have no idea what the condition is going to be, what the issue is going to be, but I look at clients and their issues like a complex puzzle, that if you can solve the puzzle, then you can kind of help it. And that means, it keeps me on my toes. I can never get bored of what I do because it is so unpredictable. But still, a lot of people do see me for kind of phobias and anxiety and weight loss and certain addictions as well. I'd say cocaine and alcohol, two most popular addictions that people tend to work with me.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I say that all the time. It's like putting the puzzle back together. And if you can get the cornerstones, it's really helpful, the corners. And then it sort of like all fits together. So it's, because every single person is so different. And as we all know, the issue is never the issue. And that's where we have to get curious. And that's what we do. It's like we get, wonder what that is. What, and it's like, where did that come from? And what led to that? And what was behind that? And it's like, it's like being a detective.
It's being a detective where you get better with experience. There's an analogy that I use that if you had some kind of, let's say narcotics police officer, and they were searching the home of a drug dealer, on the very first time that they're searching for that home, they're guessing where things might be hidden, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But on the, let's say, 100th time they're doing a search, they're going to know exactly where to look for hidden things, if that makes sense. So then it's going to look like, how do they possibly know that? Because they've done it enough times. And I think when you've got more experience as a hypnotist, it looks magical to the client, because they're like, how do you even know to ask that? Like, how did you make that connection? But you've got, hundreds of clients as a previous thing to know where to look for. So it is solving a puzzle, but it's solving a puzzle that you've solved similar puzzles before to make it easier each time you do it.
Do you know what? You're exactly right there. I'm smiling because literally a client the other day, I said to her, well, I'm not magic. And she said, well, you kind of are.
It looks magic. It's kind of like a good illusionist. Like, you kind of know that there's like mirrors and distraction and things going on, but it looks magical if you're seeing a great illusionist. And I think when you see a great hypnotist, even if someone was to explain it, in terms of what they're doing, in terms of, whether it's kind of certain triggering moments or disassociating from unresourceful states, like, you lose all the magic of that. But when you just you're working with a client and they've got this thing they've been struggling with for years, and then they don't, that's magical for them because they've already tried to escape that maze and haven't been able to, but you can, because you've helped other people escape the maze. And I think that element is what draws people, I think, to hypnosis, is this idea that it's got this kind of magical kind of connotation to it. I think lots of hypnotists probably are the magician archetype, that they want that kind of element of rapid transformation because it feels like something magical is happening. And I think sometimes hypnotists, if they too academic and too kind of clinical in nature, it loses some of that kind of magical connotations connected to hypnosis. And sometimes it's good to kind of not over-explain it and just let the clients experience these wonderful transformations without really knowing what's going on.
Yeah. It's no, I'm with you. I think it's aren't we lucky?
I think so. Yeah.
Aren't we lucky that we found this wonderful tool that everybody actually goes into every day anyway? And it's so what do you find the most let me see, things that you face if people are up against you about this sort of thing, like if anybody says anything negative towards you, what kind of things do they say to you?
I don't really get a lot of negative stuff, in all honesty, because I think that most people that work with me now, they might have listened to my podcast, 10, 20, 30 times. So they're already in rapport with my voice. They've already got a sense of confidence that I know what I'm doing and I've done it enough. I don't get very many cold inquiries where they don't know who I am, because either they've already listened to my stuff, seen my stuff, or been referred to by someone else. So the hard work has already been done at that particular point, which means it's probably easier for me. When I started, I would say the key things were this feeling that they could be made to do something they didn't want to do, that it was controlling, like all of the popular misconceptions that come up. and I don't really encounter them anyway. I do have a good metaphor that helps people that feel that they're out, that they could be made to do something they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to them, well, look, if you were lost in a forest and you didn't know that forest very well, and you met someone that knew the forest really, really well, and they offered to lead you out of the forest, does that mean that that guide is controlling you, or are you just willingly working with someone that knows the terrain better than you know that terrain? And that seems to really kind of help for them to kind of understand, yeah, the unconscious mind is kind of like a bit of an unknown terrain to a lot of people. The average person doesn't think too much about how their mind works and where their beliefs come from and that kind of stuff. So it makes it feel like they're a willing participant rather than being controlled. And I think a lot of Hollywood movies have this connotation of control and coercion and manipulation, whereas, as we know, it's not like that at all. But that's a helpful metaphor, I find, to kind of pace their experience so it feels like, oh no, this is collaborative.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Actually, I've found that more and more people are knowing what hypnosis is.
True.
And you're right. I get very little negativity as well, but I know some people who do. And so the other day I was taking an Uber to the airport, and I said, I'm going to a hypnosis conference. I said, do you know what hypnosis does? And he says, yes, it helps people. And I was like, yes.
Nice.
I thought, nice one. It really does. And no drugs involved.
That's it.
Just you, because you have all the answers inside of you and we just guide. So, yeah, so I love that. So thank you, Adam. Thank you for coming on. And I look forward to seeing you very soon. So,
absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be good fun. So take care, everybody. Thank you for watching. And it's goodbye from me, Claudia Ricard. And it's goodbye from...
It's goodbye from me, Adam Cox, the hypnotist.